Alright YouTube, so today I wanted to do a discussion video for Fallout 76, and specifically it's about the criticism and the hate that's been surrounding this game pretty much since it was revealed. This game has had mixed responses pretty much since we found out that it was a multiplayer game. That's really probably the overall biggest complaint about the game, is that it is a multiplayer Fallout. And I get it, I understand, some people don't like change, some people just don't like multiplayer games in general, and when you think of Fallout, you think of a single player immersive experience. Something I've heard people say over the past 4 months a lot is that nobody wanted a multiplayer Fallout, which is just entirely untrue. If you look at people talking about it online, I've said this a few times, I always give the ratio of like 50-50 because I don't know what the actual ratio is. But there's just as much people out there saying they're excited for a multiplayer Fallout as there are people saying that nobody ever wanted a multiplayer Fallout. And I get why a lot of people out there feel like Fallout should only ever be single player because all of the mainline games have been single player up to this point. But the concept of a multiplayer Fallout goes back as far as the year 2000, when Interplay still had the IP for Fallout. They wanted to make a Fallout MMO, but the only reason they didn't is because they lacked the funds. It's a very expensive game to make. So what you have here is the players in the community who think that Fallout should only ever be single player, but you actually have Interplay, the people who literally created the Fallout series, wanting to make a Fallout multiplayer. So I always find it kind of funny when people freak out about a multiplayer Fallout, because the concept's been there forever, it just never got off the ground. And then in more recent years, around 2010, Interplay was actually going to work on a Fallout MMO called Fallout Online. But there were some legal issues, we're not going to get into that, but the point is, in recent times, after Fallout 3 had come out, around the time Fallout New Vegas was coming out, they were still interested in making a multiplayer Fallout. But the idea that Fallout should only ever be single player, or that nobody wants a multiplayer Fallout, just doesn't really hold up because it's not the truth. When it comes to Fallout 76, for whatever reason, a lot of people seem to think that this is the future of the series. People seem to think that just from here on out, Fallout's going to be multiplayer. From here on out, Bethesda's going to be multiplayer. And I don't even know where that comes from. Bethesda Game Studios has been around since 2001, and this is literally them developing. This is their first multiplayer game ever. So I don't understand how people jump to the conclusion that they make one multiplayer game in the history of their development, and all of a sudden, that's the future of the entire company. I don't even know where that comes from. Are they hopping on the multiplayer trend? Sure. Is this game really, when you boil it down, a cash grab? Sure. But their bread and butter is single-player, open-world RPGs. They're not just going to stop doing that all of a sudden. They've made more money off of Fallout Shelter than I believe all of their games combined. Elder Scrolls Blades is going to make them a ton of money, and this game, through microtransactions as well, is going to make them a ton of money. They're not just going to stop making single-player games. Something that seems to be going over a lot of people's heads is that this game was never meant to be or going to be Fallout 5. It's clearly, from the beginning, going to be a spin-off game. That's beyond obvious. It came out 3 years after Fallout 4. It's clearly reusing all the assets from Fallout 4. It's not like other BGS games that are in development for like 5+ years. This game was clearly made pretty quickly. And this trend is nothing new with Bethesda since 2008 when they released Fallout 3. They dropped Fallout 3, a couple years later they dropped Fallout New Vegas. Next year, they dropped Skyrim. A couple years later, they dropped Elder Scrolls Online. A year after that, 2015, they dropped Fallout 4. Here we are, a couple years later, they're dropping Fallout 76. This is a trend they've been doing for the past decade. Mainline game, branch-off game. Mainline game, branch-off game, and now they're doing it again. And obviously I'm aware that Fallout New Vegas was developed by Obsidian, and of course ESO was developed by ZeniMax Online, but they're still BGS games. This is the first time that Bethesda Game Studios themselves is making a multiplayer game, and a branch-off game. In terms of the 3D open-world games, obviously Shelter was BGS and so is Blades. And something else people don't seem to know is that every time Bethesda Game Studios makes a game, they conceptualize a multiplayer for it. Oblivion, Skyrim, Fallout 3, Fallout New Vegas, Fallout 4. They've never got past pre-production, but they still conceptualize what a multiplayer for that game would be like. So them making a multiplayer game isn't actually that surprising. Now that information wasn't really widely known until about 2015 when we found out about it, but they've still dabbled with multiplayer pretty much forever. As I mentioned previously, Fallout 76 is clearly a spin-off game, similar to what Elder Scrolls Online is, and I've never heard one person say that, the future of Elder Scrolls is multiplayer. Elder Scrolls 6 is going to be a multiplayer game, so I don't know why people are doing that with Fallout 76. They're pretty similar games in design, except for the fact that they claim that Fallout 76 is not an MMO, which I guess it technically isn't. It's pretty much an MMO without the massive. Smaller lobbies, less people around the world, but again, it's pretty much similar to ESO, so the people who are claiming that Fallout 76 is the future of Fallout, why haven't we been hearing you say that Elder Scrolls Online is the future of Elder Scrolls? You're absolutely allowed to not like the game because it's multiplayer. You do not have to like a multiplayer Fallout. But to say that Fallout's never supposed to be multiplayer, should only ever be single player, is completely not true. They've been trying to make a Fallout multiplayer pretty much since the franchise has been around. Some of the other criticisms we've heard about the game are the PvP, which at the beginning, the early stages of this game, I didn't like the concept of it either, really. I'm not against PvP in games, but I just didn't really want somebody messing with me trying to run around and quest and do stuff. But as we've learned more and more about PvP as time's gone on, it's completely pointless. It's not even something to be worried about anymore. If your issue with PvP is that it's entirely pointless, then I'm in complete agreement with you, because it is. There's almost nothing to the PvP. You almost can't even be griefed in this game. There's so many layers of anti-griefing that it's not even feasible to be a raider. People aren't going to be running around killing each other, teabagging each other, and all that shit. That's just not even a possibility in this game. And same thing with nuking. People are like, oh, I'm going to spend hours building my settlement, and then some 12-year-old's going to nuke it. It's like, even if that did happen, it doesn't matter. Even if you got killed by the nuke, it does not matter, because you respawn, you lost nothing, you can rebuild your settlement, not even a big deal. But with all that aside, it still takes a while to get the nuke codes, and whenever an area's being nuked, you get an on-screen warning, a verbal warning, and a 3-minute countdown. So if you get nuked, it's literally all on you. And all of this is public information and has been for a while, but the people who like to sit around and criticize Fallout 76 constantly don't actually do the research to realize that they are not informed enough to really even talk about this stuff, because it's not even concerns. If one of your concerns with this game is being killed by the nuke, even though you have ample opportunity to leave the area and not be killed by it, you'd actually have to go out of your way to die by the nuke. You're just complaining to complain. Another concern or complaint about the game is microtransactions, which I don't actually agree with at all, because it's cosmetic only. People seem to be worried that Bethesda is going to make the Atom Store pay to win or start selling perk cards or perk packs to us. My thing is, until it actually happens, what the hell is the point in getting upset about that? That just doesn't make any sense to me. Until I see a pay to win item in the Atom Shop, or perk cards or perk packs, I just don't see the point of being like, I cannot believe the Atom Shop is pay to win when there's yet to be anything that's pay to win in the Atom Shop. We don't even know what the items are going to be, so like, let's just chill. If you're just completely against microtransactions, I get it. I don't agree with it. If it's cosmetic only, it does not bother me in the slightest. Plus, it's going to fund all the future free updates and DLC for this game for years to come, so I think I can live with it. Another criticism I've heard is the graphics of the game, which I don't think is at all relevant, because that's completely subjective. And when you look at, like, say, Fallout 3, New Vegas, Oblivion, and Skyrim, Fallout 4 and Fallout 76 have comparatively great graphics, so I'm completely fine with it. Some other criticisms are the lack of NPCs, and in the same realm, the lack of a dialogue system. I've done an entire video about the dialogue system thing. I just think that without there being actual NPCs to interact with, it doesn't even really matter if there's no dialogue system, because what the hell or who the hell would you talk to? Now, the lack of human NPCs in the game, I can absolutely agree with. I don't see why they couldn't have just put in like a handful. It didn't have to be like a normal Fallout game where there's a lot of people like running around the wasteland and a bunch of settlements, but they could have done a handful, maybe like 30 to 40 spread throughout the gigantic map. But just completely having no human NPCs, not a single human in the wasteland survived. I'm not a big fan of it either, but there is an in-game reason as to why everybody in Appalachia is actually dead. There's a virus or a fungus that has to do with the Scorched and the Scorched Beast. Whether or not that's interesting and explains it and makes sense, we'll have to see when we play the game. Another criticism that's ramped up a lot recently is the lore of the game, and I get why people take lore so seriously, but I'm just a different kind of gamer. It does not bother me that much. I already did a video talking about this, so that if you want a longer version of this, you can watch that. But simply put, I don't think Bethesda's breaking the lore. Gameplay is one that I haven't really heard anybody complain about, but if you liked Fallout 4's gameplay, you'll like this game's. If you hated Fallout 4's gameplay, you'll probably hate this game's as well. The only thing I've really heard complain about is the VATs, which I've only really heard from the YouTubers. I can't go into specifics because we're not actually allowed to talk about our experience with the stress test, but what I will say is if these YouTubers cannot figure out how to use the VATs in-game, you shouldn't really be looking to them for opinions on the game at all. And lastly, at least for this video, is the performance and optimization of the game. This is one that everybody has to agree with. Nobody wants to play the game hopping and skipping frames constantly, so they have to fix this shit, at least for sure by launch. I don't want it to happen during the beta at all, if that can be possible, but for sure, you know, by the time the beta is over and the game launches on November 14th, this cannot be happening. And that's pretty much it for the video, guys. There's probably other stuff we could talk about, like the questing of the game. It does look pretty linear and repetitive, but at the same time, I've played plenty of games where you do a lot of the same stuff over and over, so that's kind of a player-to-player thing, but clearly I want more in-depth quest if we can get that. The point of this video was to talk about and address a lot of the concerns with this game, a lot of the complaints, and kind of give my thoughts on it. So as usual with the discussion video, I'm done talking. I'm passing it off to you guys in the comments section. What do you guys think? Ultimately, what I want is, as you guys are watching this, the beta starts tomorrow. I just want people to play the game and then form their opinions. They claim that the beta is the full game, so I think it's fair to evaluate the game based off of the beta itself. The only thing that should be different between that and the launch would be optimization. Either way, let me know your thoughts below, guys, as usual. And if you want to enjoy the video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel if you guys are new, turn on notifications, follow me on Twitter at TheDashingDavid, at my Discord. Links to my social networks are in the description and in the outro. Later, guys.
Give me forever for a while, quit acting like